Hi, I'm Jules Astara. Welcome to my studio here in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Thank you for spending a bit of your time with me in this way. I invite you to go ahead and subscribe for future videos and also to subscribe for emails if you would like to be eligible for seasonal giveaways that are reserved especially for email acquaintances. The giveaway items could include inspiration card decks, books that I've published, art prints, original art, or online courses. So lots of good stuff to get in on that. Recipients are selected around each equinox and solstice. In this video, we're creating handmade stencils, a few handmade stencils. I love this project because it's a way that you can create some original art by creating the stencils yourself that you can then use again and again in many ways, whether it's for collage material, for making handmade cards and invitations, or to give the stencils themselves as handmade gifts to some crafty friends, or use them to make stencil block prints. So there are so many great ways that you can use this project and expand upon it. I hope that you'll enjoy it. The supplies that I'm using today are super easy to find, should be accessible for just about anyone and everyone, and inexpensive, or we're also repurposing supplies. So it's also great for keeping stuff out of the landfills and the trash. So I love that aspect to it as well. This is one of the ones that we create in today's video, and some of the ways we also play with some of the ways that we can use it. Here's another example. We play with some few different types of color, ink and paint. And these are from the other stencil that we make. So I hope you have fun playing along. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. I will do my best to answer. And you can find all the supplies that I use, the supply list, in the description for the video below, along with information about more in-depth courses that I offer, including some with more elaborate stencil design. Let's get creative. For this one, I'm using a piece of repurposed plastic that was from a food container that I've washed with soap and water and dried, and then cutting out so that I'll have a flat piece of it so that any uneven edges won't be used. I love finding ways to use materials like this to reduce waste and create something fun instead. So using a black Sharpie marker, you could use any marker most likely for this, to just doodle some sort of motif. So these kind of remind me of pieces of seaweed, but you'll notice that I'm bringing them all in from one edge, so it'll be easy to cut them with scissors. You don't need an X-Acto knife for this. It's safer and easier, especially if you might want to do something like this with children. And every mark that I draw, I started from the edge and worked in with the marker so that then my scissors will be able to follow that same line to work from the outside in. And this is just maybe a little botanical, a few leaves or something, and then some other random marks just to fill the space. You can fill it as much or as little as you want, but again, you need to do so coming from the edges if you're going to be using these same tools. If you'd like to make more intricate stencils or a set of coordinating stencils, we do that in some of the more in-depth classes that I offer, so you can see more information about those in the description below. Another nice thing about the plastic is that you can see through it when working with it over top of your other artwork, especially if you're able to get all of the labels off or if it didn't have any labels to begin with. And then the key is when you're cutting out each shape to make sure that you are following the lines and only following the lines, not cutting anywhere else. Otherwise, your stencil's not going to work the way that you intend it to. So by that I mean you don't want to cut further than where the line is or come at it from a different angle than the way the line is drawn. Of course, you can still use it even if you have little goofs, so no worries about that, especially if you enjoy more abstract style shapes and designs, but you can add pattern to anything. So I sped it up there obviously because watching me slowly cut it out was not necessary to get the point. I did slow it down for this particular one just to give you another example of how I'm following the lines and not going beyond the lines. And also, as long as I cut this out as one whole shape for this little botanical, then I can use it as a mask or like a stamp in other areas. So I didn't cut right across the little leaf, even if it might have been quicker, because I wanted to keep it as one whole piece to take out that plastic from the stencil. And those other pieces that I have already cut out can also be used that way. And then I just wanted to see how well an X-Acto knife would even work on the plastic if I had wanted to use it that way. This is not what I usually use when I'm making stencils. So I tried putting a piece of cardboard under it and using it, and it is pretty thick. It's more difficult to use the X-Acto knife to cut it and not quite as safe. It is doable and is probably what you would want to do if you were doing much more detailed designs. I wanted this one to be done with just scissors anyway, for the ease of having the materials. Like pretty much anyone is going to be able to have the materials on hand for this if you just repurpose a piece of plastic from something, from some kind of packaging, and then have a pair of scissors handy. So for a lot of creative projects, especially ones that I do, I love art supplies, and so there can be an extensive art supply list. And getting exposed to all different kinds of supplies and seeing how they work can be one of the benefits of taking classes. Yet for this one, I wanted it to be very accessible, and it's obviously quite economical, so you can easily experiment with several and not worry about making mistakes. So this is a Delusions ink spray. It's one of my favorite things to use to add color after creating a stencil. It's quick and easy and fun and gets some really cool results. So that would be the one thing you might want to purchase for this project, though not necessary if you have some other way of adding color and giving it a try. So I had put a piece of paper under it that you can see there. I was trying it on, and I love the result. It's fun and easy, and it reminds me of an underwater scene. I used to live in the islands in the Florida Keys, so that inspiration frequently shows up in my art. And then a fun thing about this is that while cleaning the stencil, you get like a block print out of it, a stencil print. So I had flipped it over and then placed that paper towel over just to protect my brayer, the roller that I was using, from the excess ink. And I love that reverse side, the flip side, as much or more than the original from the stencil on the other piece of paper, because the way that the ink kind of squishes and moves around creates some more cool effects. And then I was just continuing to clean the excess ink off onto paper first so that I could reuse that somehow. Those paper towels could be used in collage, and so could the paper. And then I just wanted to do one using an inexpensive craft acrylic paint in case you don't have the fancy spray inks. You can still make use of it by doing this, and you could do this on cards. I'm just doing it on a piece of paper here. It may be a piece of watercolor paper. It might not be as thick as watercolor paper because with the acrylic paint it doesn't need to be. And you can get both effects, but the stamping or block printing effect does not work as well typically with the acrylic paint unless you put a lot on, and it just doesn't get the same kind of effects that you get with the ink that I had where it smushed around underneath. So I chose a color that was similar to the colors I was already using in case I wanted to attempt to use that as a stamp over top of the other. I thought I would at least try it and see how well it worked. And I decided to try it over that one, not even in the same orientation or direction. Now, I was not thinking ahead for that, so I did not intentionally put extra acrylic paint on the thing. So you can see I didn't get a lot of effect, even though I was pressing with the brayer to attempt to get it off. I was mostly kind of cleaning it. If I had intended to do that, I would have wanted to cover more of the stencil itself with the paint instead of just painting in between the cutouts. And now coming in and mixing some of the ink with the acrylic paint, and I end up quite loving all of the different things, just playing and experimenting. And here with that one piece of paper, rearranging it and using it in different directions and different ways. So you could make an entire piece composing it, playing with the composition that way, or you can use it in collage as material for that, or add more paint over top of it and let this be your initial layer. So many ways you can do it. And that piece in the middle I love. You could cut it out and make like a pool party invitation or beach day invitation with it. Here you can see how I'm using that piece that I had cut out now that I said was like a little botanical as both a mask and or stamp in a few different places on this one. So that's another way you can create a composition using it, by using the pieces that you cut out in addition to the piece that you intend to be the stencil. And that's one of the things I love about making stencils, is that you're making a piece of your own original art when you make your own, and then you get to use it, reuse it over and over again in so many different ways. And the repurposed plastic, reduce, reuse, is really holds up well to being used over and over and over. So taking what is often considered one of its downsides, which is for the environment. However, if we have it and we want to keep it out of the landfill, then this is one thing we can do, and where its longevity or durability becomes a plus for our stencil projects. And you could make stencils to give as gifts to other artsy friends and crafters. It's something that you could easily do with kids because it's affordable way for them to be able to make handmade and homemade gifts. You could incorporate the stencil or the stencil design into a card itself to be part of the card that has an additional purpose. So here I sprayed it with water to help clean it off and then make it loose, help to loosen up the stuff that was on the stencil, coming in with some tracing paper just out of curiosity. Again, experimenting. What if I try that? What happens? I was not particularly thrilled with it. I'm sure I'll still use it for something at some point, yet the tracing paper itself didn't work as well as I like to use it sometimes for other collage material. Coming in now with a different paper, and ooh, I really like it. That's going to be a cool beginning to something else to continue to use. So I just wanted to get some more of the ink and paint off of the stencil that way prior to cleaning it off more with a paper towel, because I want as much of the color, the inks and stuff, to be on something I can use rather than going into the trash somehow or down the drain. So I did eventually use a wet paper towel to finish cleaning it off. And I had to scrub a little bit. You don't even necessarily need to clean it off if you don't want to try to take advantage of the clear aspect of the plastic. What was left of those labels didn't clean well, but the inks can stain or reactivate, so you might want to get those off. I love how easy that was, yet it makes some really sweet, fun, cool results. I want to show you one more. This is using a package from the bakery, so it had an indentation in the center, so I thought this was a great piece to use as an example of how you might be able to use scissors to create a stencil working both from the center outwards by making a hole in the middle like this, or from the edges coming in, or both. So for this one I'm doing both, and made the design as a burst out from the center, and then also had some come in from the outer edges so that you can work it both ways and create something fun like this. And that just gives you another option if you want to work from the center outwards to play with and experiment with the types of designs. I was still making sure that each shape was individual and could be accessed from either the middle or the outer edge with the scissors. And because this one wasn't flat in the center, I had to make sure that I cut all of the edges off of the center to make it flat as well. And then you don't want to clip through. Remember, you want to turn and cut only along the lines, not cutting through. However, if you make a little boo-boo like I did on this piece right there, oops, you can use some tape to give it a little patch job, like a band-aid for the boo-boo. So these two are quite simple, with this sunburst or sunflower motif and the other one that could be nautical or botanical. Great for beginners if you're just want to try this with the scissors and plastic and create something that still makes some really lovely results. I hope you make something you enjoy. Please give it a thumbs up if you appreciate it, and you can subscribe for future videos. And you're invited to join me if you'd like to go deeper into exploring with inks in the Inktastic Art Adventures. We create several different styles of art and use lots of different kinds of ink in that, while also giving attention to our energy and appreciating nature. Or for a full 52 weeks, a full year in color. I make stencils in both of those, and there are several other artist guides in the year in color as well. You can get information about those in the links in the description. Thanks so much for joining me. I hope you have a creative day.